Jean's coming on. All right. So, welcome everyone. I do see a few names here. So, welcome. My name's Anita Thompson of Art Venture Workshops, and I'm here sponsored by the Feasterville Library this morning. Thank you so much to the Friends of the Feasterville Library. We appreciate the friends in all the libraries because they usually sponsor a lot of the programs that are brought to you. So, always I have to say, always please check out your library programs other than even the drawings. There are so many fascinating ones. I'm still waiting for someone to pay me to be an official library program goer because I would do it. I would just go to programs like all day and all night. I think it's so much fun. So anyway, we are going to be using a number 2 pencil and also a 6B pencil. Now, I mentioned if you do not have a 6B, if you have a drawing pencils, you could have a 4B, a 5B, even a 3B. Usually they come in sets if you buy them in Michael's, or I've even seen them at the store Five Below. Anything higher than a number 2 pencil would work. But if you don't have that, that's okay. We will make do with the number 2 pencil. Your blacks just won't be as charcoal-like and they'll be a little more shiny, but that's okay. As long as, we can press on the darker parts. All right, but we're going to be starting off with our number 2 pencil. We're going to be sketching very lightly to get our candle in there. A lot of the work on this is going to be the blending and the shading. So I'm going to show you this just up close. I'm going to quickly mention about transitions. So what I mean by a transition is when one shade starts to very finely go into another one. So for instance, right here is a transition, this dark shade that is next to sort of the medium shade. Those transitions are important because to our eye, it shows more of a seamless blending. So we call those transitions because it's literally you're helping the form, the 2-dimensional form that you're drawing, transition into something that looks 3-dimensional, which is pretty cool to be able to do that on paper. So, and I'll talk more about that as we get into it. And then, of course, there's our pencil marking, or our pencil marks, I should say. As you can see here, we start to use mark making and using lines that are diagonal. And also, basically, it's called cross hatching for those that are familiar with that. It's basically where you're making lines in both directions, and it's for the purpose of shading something and for helping. Sometimes when you do it on a form, meaning something that you want to look 3-dimensional, it's to help make it look more 3-dimensional. In this case, it's just our background. So just wanted to kind of fill you in with that. All right, so on we go, starting with our number 2 pencil. So we're going to start off with basically the straight part of the candle. We want to make sure that we leave room for the flame. So we're going to start at the top of, I always like to kind of, literally start at the top of my paper and then physically kind of go down with my pencil. You may be able to do it just with your eyes. I somehow always like to do it sort of with my pencil as well. So I'm coming down here, leaving room for the flame. And now we're going to start with the curved part of the melting wax. And so there is sort of a big area here of the wax that has kind of sort of started to melt in sort of like the right hand side way. And so for now, what we're going to do is basically we're just going to do some very basic shape and then later on deal with the detail of the candle drips. So we find ourselves sort of making a little bit of a bump over here for now and then just going straight down. And the other side, we go straight down. And then once we do that, we want to make sure that the bottom of our candle is a bit rounded as it's sitting in its candle holder. So I feel like I always say this, it's a pretty simple drawing. We do more with all the shading and all the details. Now, once we have this part done, we're now going to make a cylinder. So we start sort of at the back of the candle here, and I'm going to now start to go closer to my page here so you can see. So we start with the cylinder, we go behind, and we're going to kind of almost come to a pointy circle, right? So it's very oval-like, and then we're going to bring that around, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. You want to make sure that this line kind of goes in the same sort of matches up with this line is what I'm trying to say. So sometimes what I like to do is kind of draw that line behind or through the candle part. And then I can see and make sure that if that candle weren't there, the cylinder still would be there. It's a good way to get the form and the shape of parts of your drawing. And then I'm going to erase that line because it matches up. And I think I want to make this back line just a little bit flatter coming forward. There we go. That was the angle I was looking for. And then once you are finished with that, you go down to the candle holder, which is basically curving and then straight down. And you repeat that on the other side. And hello, Michelle and Jean. I forgot to say hello. I saw you two joined. So good to see you. Happy Saturday. Okay. So now we are going to come up here and just create our match and our flame. And so it's basically kind of like a thin line with our flame attached and goes up to a point. Now I like to have the flame on the right side come down a little bit lower than the flame line on this side. Looks more realistic. And then kind of go straight up. There's a curve here, but then you go a little more straight for that flame shape. I think I have to make mine over here just a little more straighter. Here we go. Oh, I feel like my flame is kind of tilted. There we do. And it can be tilted if you want. I just don't want mine tilted. Okay. So the other thing I want to mention, obviously, your fingers, the sides of your palm are going to get pretty messy. it's sort of par for the course. Afterward, obviously, you want to make sure to try to limit itching your nose. If you do, just make sure you go in the bathroom, wipe everything off, and you can wash your hands afterward. Um, the other thing that I like to mention is, obviously, the more sort of the graphite that gets on our arms and the side of our palms. Um, Obviously, you'll be moving back and forth on your drawing. If you really don't like it, you can get another piece of paper to kind of rest the side of your palm on, right? What I've done when I'm working on long, complicated drawings is I also use, if you have a piece of tracing paper, so that way you can still see through to your drawing. So that's another option. For today, I'm not doing that because I'm teaching. So you can see that my other one, has sort of the marks on it, but I'll go back later on and fix that. Okay, so carrying on now, we have the basics here. I'm going to make this bump a little higher now on the left side because I'm realizing I did not do that. You might want to join me in doing that. If not, if you're okay with your wax bump, it's okay. And then once you do that, you do want to make sure to extend the match line a little bit now past the line for the candle. And I'm going to go really close once again so that you're able to see. So basically here, I extended a little bit of the line. And the reason for that is we're going to draw a curved line right underneath because now we're making that candle wick three-dimensional. Or the candle, the top of the candle. Right? So now we have a very much three-dimensional candle. And now we're going to start in on the wick. And then we start with all the lovely shading. So we're going to start here on the left. So this is where, you might want to just lighten up some of your lines because we're going to start adding some bumps and drips. So here we've got the first one. We're going to drip that out. And by doing so, we start to kind of rotate that line around. I'm going to go really close now. All right. So we've got our drip, and then we're going to go up back towards the top part. Our line's going to curve in just a little bit. I added another light so that you can see. I know it's really shiny on my other one, but I think it's helpful for you to see this one. So there we've got our first drip. We're going to add another drip right here. So as you can see, it kind of gets sort of teardrop shape at the bottom. And then we're going to continue adding more. Here is that bump that we started with, and we're going to make this drip longer, like so. And then we're going to take that line and we're going to follow that up. Let me do this darker so you can see it. And we're going to follow it up till about right here. And then we're going to come back down at the bottom and we're going to add another drip that's going the other way. So it's sort of bending a bit. But as it curves, We follow that straight line of the drip and go upward. But then we stop because there's another smaller drip that's starting to happen. That's about right here. So your lines, as you can see, my lines are sort of dark. That's so that you're able to see them on Zoom. Your lines should be lighter than mine. If they're not right now, we will go back and we will erase them very lightly. Okay, so one other thing we want to do, we want to come back over here to the left, and we've got a little drip happening down here. So we just want to make a little bit of a line right there. So it's not much of a detail, but it makes the difference, right? We just add that little line and now it looks like a drip. And then we're now going to continue with that dripping candle by adding a bit of a curve here. And then we're going to kind of stagger our next line because as it's dripping, it's going over the edge here of this. And so it would kind of go off a little to the right. And then we have one more drip happening down here. And this drip is bent a little bit right at the top. And then it's going to go up like this. So I'll let you work on that one. Okay. Oh, let me just check the chat. Did I miss? Oh, okay. Good. All right. So, excuse me. Now we're going to come back to our candle and we're going to come back over here and we're going to create another set of drips. So these drips, basically what we're doing is we're making some drips that are separate from these. So this space right here that we've just created by this line is the candle. Now, after you make that line, we're going to come back up here and we're going to make some really light sort of, these are drips, but these are very kind of light and kind of shaggy. Here's another one. So it's coming together. And then once you have that, we're going to now come over here, the edge of that, and we're going to kind of make that overall shape of that drip, but it's just going to be right here for now. So basically a little bit of a curve. And then we're going to work inside of here. So after we make that outside curve, we are going to come over here a little to the right, and we're just going to make sort of a shaded part like so, because that is sort of the opening of the wax. And then I'm going to have you come back down here because we're going to have another opening to the wax. I'm gonna kind of erase this line right here because I kind of overextended it a bit. And we're gonna come down here and we're gonna bring the wax line, that dripping wax, up a little from here like that. These are the little details that we're gonna get into before we do the shading. Now, once you make that line, we're gonna make a little bit of kind of a straight line, but it's gonna curve downward like so. And it's gonna hit towards the bottom here, but it's gonna keep going. So we're gonna curve that around. But then we're gonna jump our pencil over to over here and make a drip. And this drip is gonna be longer than this one. And we're just gonna leave that drip without a circular bottom, or teardrop bottom, I should say. All right, now we're gonna come back. We're gonna complete this part. So now we have this shape here. We're now going to add a little bit of a line. And that line is gonna kind of bend over to this section. And then we're gonna make one more line. It's kind of gonna go right here so that it matches up with this part. See, this is a line. And guess what? You have got your candle now. And now it's time to start in on the first level of shading. So the next thing I want us to do is come up here to the flame, and we're just gonna add, oh, you know what I forgot to mention? A yellow colored pencil. I just realized a yellow colored pencil is for the flame part. I don't know why I forgot that. So I'm looking at the flame and going, oh, it's a different color. So when you get a chance, when we get to that part, that is the last part, you can grab a yellow colored pencil if you have it. Sorry about that. So back to the flame, we're going to make these very light shaded shapes in the center of the flame. Now we're going to come back down here and we're going to be underneath the candle. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to make this line darker. So basically what you want to do is you want to skip over the wax parts because those would not be darker. But you're going to come around here and then you're going to make a little bit of, at the edge, you're going to kind of make a cylinder. And I'm going to show this up close. And the way you're going to make the cylinder is with that line is you make it darker and then right at the edge of either section, you kind of scribble a little bit behind the candle. And that now makes it look like the candle is sitting inside the holder even more. Okay, so something so simple, but it elevates your drawing. And then once you do that, you also want to now come and you're going to make the cylinder around the candle holder darker. So now we're going to start off on the left side and just retrace it. until you get to the right side. Like so. And then you're also going to retrace the sides of the candle holder and make those darker as well. And then finally, you're actually going to be tracing around the outside of your candle as well. So it's almost like we're creating silhouettes here. You also want to make sure to even go where the top of the candle is, the flame, a little bit of the flame actually. I would say halfway up the flame. So if you can see, here's where my darker lines are. So not the tip of the flame. Oh, I realized I have to move down a bit for the camera. Sorry about that. I guess my hand started pushing my drawing up. And then again, completing it on the right side. All right, and now we're going to start our shading. So basically, we are not using, usually in drawings like this, when I teach these, for those that are new, we use what's called a blending stump in order to make our, I mentioned the word transitions before, to make those easier. These, I'm not going to make them easy on you this time. You're going to be doing it with your pencil markings, so that you can really get a feel for the transitions, and so that you'll be able to say, oh, I need more lines there to make it darker, or I need a lighter feel for that section. So we're going to start off and make very light lines. So holding our pencil very lightly. So not like, when you are writing, you're holding it very lightly. And we're going to start off in the candle section on the right. And basically, let me see if I can show my hand. So basically, I'm going to kind of show my hand on the back of my paper here for a second. The reason I'm doing that is you're kind of flicking with your thumb a little bit. It's very light. You can even practice on the other side. Just kind of trying to get you a feel for what you're doing. So with that being said, let me move this over so that you can kind of see my arm as well. So we're going to start here, and right up against here, we're going to start very lightly, kind of making short strokes, but then at the same time, we're also kind of staying in that same area and almost going in like a circular short stroke direction, if that makes sense. And you're going to do that all along this side and then down here at the bottom. You're also going to fill in the space in between here. Oh. Hi, Debbie. Welcome. We're recording, so anything you missed, you can pick up. Now, once you fill this in, you're also going to go over here and you're going to fill it in as well. Oh, no worries. I'm happy to see you. I wondered where you were. I thought maybe you were shoveling. we're working. So we're going to do the first stage of basically building up our drawing. And so what you do is you kind of start off with the lighter shading first. And then you're able to see where the darker, the what's called the midtones and the darker tones. Midtone meaning middle, middle of the lightest and the darkest shades. And there are many shades in between those, but for our purposes today, we're going to say, the lightest shade, the midtone, and the darkest shade. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to actually come down here, excuse me, to this part, to the candle holder. And we're basically now going to be shading starting here. We're going to leave the top of the candle holder part unshaded. So basically, we're going to kind of quickly, and also the sides of the candle holder. You're going to go around your drips. So it's going to look a bit like this. And the more texture that we get from doing this, the better. You might want to make it perfect and flat looking, but this drawing is not about that. I mean, if you want to go back and do that after, absolutely, you are welcome to. So you should have to have what looks like that. I'm going to grab my tea for a second while we're doing it. Marsha, I love that. Marsha just said in the chat she's thinking of Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast. I never thought of that. What a great, I love that. Yeah, it does. Now it does remind me of that. That's one of my favorite Disney stories. It's great. Thank you for that. That's pretty cool. And oh, how I would love to teach some of the drawing, sort of those characters and stuff like that, but I don't want to be sued by Disney. So you'll find I don't touch many Disney things because they actually have scouts that look for that sort of thing. I'm not sure how others are able to get away with it. I've seen things where like they have like the princesses and stuff. Like I don't know how I'm not sure how that works, but I'm not going there. I would love to. I mean, I would love to draw some of, and I know they're popular. Yesterday was Winnie the Pooh Day, and I would love to do drawings of Winnie the Pooh and teach people that, but I can't. I mean, I've gotten away with some Star Wars things by calling it the droid and that sort of thing. But I don't tempt that much. And I was just saying I would love to do Lumiere and a Beauty and the Beast drawing. That would be really cool. Okay, so now that we have that, we are now going to start in on the rest of the candle part. So basically, we're going to complete the candle first, and then we're going to go to the background. All right, so going back up into the candle here, we're going to now go towards this area, and we're just going to very lightly shade inside. like so. And then we're going to make the match part black. And we have a little bit of a tip that goes, the tip of black that kind of goes into the flame, just a little bit right there. I'm actually going to move my camera really close. There we go. All right. Yep, this is still number 2, Marcia. That's a good question. Yeah, we are laying in our first layer with the number 2. Now, we're going to come back over here on the right side of the candle, and we're now going to make an even lighter layer than we did over here. So basically what I have is my pencil is up in the air above my paper. I'm going to lower it very slightly, and I'm going to kind of go really light and kind of on the side, kind of making these kind of scribbling short strokes like so. To kind of fill in that area. And we now have just done an even lighter shade. And don't worry, we're going to be coming back to the rest of this to make everything look more seamless, but we're now going to take this pencil again. We're going to come over to the left side of the wax. We're going to take that shade up just a little notch and go here. We're basically going in between and shading on the sides of the candle holder like so. And then we're going to start back up at the candle, this part, and we're going to start shading each individual drip. So again, we still have our light strokes. We're going to come where this circular part is. We're going to go above, and we're going to make sort of a circular light shading part, and then start to bring that down just halfway into the drip. So again, I came up here, I kind of made a circular shaded part, and then came down into the drip. We're going to go into the next drip. We're going to shade very lightly on top. And then we're going to go down to the bottom of the drip and shade there. We're going to go down here. We're going to come underneath this drip, make a light shaded line, and then shade next to it. But we're going to leave this part of the drip alone. Now we're going to come to the next one, and we're just very lightly going to just make a few strokes up at the top. So I'm pointing my pencil where we are. We're going to now come to this smaller drip, make some lighter strokes at the top, and follow it down just a little bit on the right side. We're going to get to these parts now, and we're going to shade kind of around them on the next drip. And we're going to go really light, coming down here. So if you stop and take a look at your drawing right now, you can see how different it's already starting to look. We haven't added the mid shades and the darker shades yet, but it's going to look really good once we do that. All the contrast is going to really go. All right, so now up here, we're just going to shade a little bit up at the top. Which will take us next to the drip over here, where we just make a little bit of shading right there. And then right next to it, we shade like that because that drip has a bit of a shadow on this side. And we're going to follow this drip. So we're now going to shade on the left side of the drip. And we're going to continue shading extremely light in the rest of the drip here, so that now it sort of looks like it's blending in a little bit with your candle holder. Now, once you do that, you're going to then come up against the drip on the left side and very lightly shade a bit darker. And you're going to do it on the other side as well. So you're shading on the side of the candle holder. Like so. Both sides. And then basically, you kind of go in the middle of that candle, the candle drip, and very lightly just kind of make a little bit of a shaded curved line, just ever so slightly. Okay, and now we're going to start to get a little darker. So we're going to go into this candle part here. First, we're going to go back into this drip and we're going to shade. We're going to do the same thing. We're kind of going to shade in the middle of the drip. And then once you do that, I'm going to shade a little darker on the outside of it and all around it to now really make that drip pop out. It's kind of like magic. And then we're going to come back up to our candle up here. And we're going to start adding our second layer of shading. And then our final layer will be the dark or darks. So we're going to come up here. We're going to make sure that this part of our candle is more white. So you can go back and erase any lines that kind of got in the way. Okay. Now we're going to come back in here and that first drip in between, we're going to make this a little darker by shading a little bit on the left side. And this is where the transition is going to happen. So here's our first transition. So what I mean by that is I just shaded on top of this line so that this line isn't as harsh anymore. That's a transition. Because in real life, there really aren't lines. But in drawing, we have to make them lines. And so what we do is we make the lines, but to make it more realistic, we make what's called transitions, because that is really what it is. It's dark shade to middle shade to a very light shade. And the way we do that is through using what we call transitions. So we just did that here. We are now going to do it a little bit here on the next drip. We're going to just, basically we're kind of fuzzing the drip line just a little bit. And then we're now going to come in between these drips, and we're going to make the shading a little darker here at the bottom. And already you're going to be able to see what that does. So you're going to shade around the bottom and then along the drip line here on the right. And then you're going to go up and shade a little darker in the next drip. And all of a sudden, that creates a three-dimensional form, making it look like the wax is basically sitting on top of the rest of the candle. So basically, inside this section should be lighter, and around it should be a bit darker. And then we're going to come now over to the drips here at the bottom. We're going to very lightly just do a little bit of shading right there. And then right over here. So now we're staying at the bottom. We're basically going to come over here and make this strip on the outside just a little bit darker at the line. And then we're going to do the same thing with the shading that we did on the other one. Yeah. Okay, and if you kind of lean back a bit and look at your picture, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, it looks different. And then we're going to come in over here and we're going to make it just a little bit darker in between this area. And then right next to it, just add a little bit of shading. And then at the drip line, we're going to kind of fuzz that out a bit by shading a little on top of it. We're going to come in these sections and make these a little darker now, just a little bit. So basically what I do is I scratch away on the side to make it look like, I'm just going to show that up close. So it kind of looks like it's staggered, the dripping, right? Like there's a little bit of, so up here, you kind of make it look more like not so drippy, but a little bit pointy. And then that transitions us right into the shading up against here that's going to get darker. And we're going to stay darker right here at the bottom of the candle. And then we're going to come into the actual candle part one more time. And we're going to go a little darker right against the drip. We're going to get a little bit darker along the rest, but it's going to stay the darkest right along the drip areas. And the way to do that is, so you keep shading. And if you notice, I'm going around in kind of circles, a circular motion. And then when I go up against the drip, I get a little darker as I'm shading. So now we do it on the other side of the other drip and then proceed around it to go just a little darker. And sometimes we press on the pencil a little more, but we still let the other lightness that we've already put down kind of shine through. And now we're ready for the background. We will be going back with our dark pencil, but now basically, okay, so now is where you might want to get another piece of paper to rest your palms on. I think I am going to grab a, if you have a tracing paper, that will work too. Or tissue paper, tissue, tracing paper, either one will work. If you don't have any of those, that's okay. You can take a little piece of, um, just copy paper, and you just need a little piece just to kind of rest your, kind of decided I wasn't going to, but then I thought, well, it's not going to look so great. And I'm doing it. So see, the great thing about the tracing paper, it's kind of nice because it, you can still see the drawing. All right, so now we're going to start in on the background. And basically, we're going to start near the candle first. And so we're going to put our number 2 pencil down, and we're finally going to grab our 6B if you have it. Now we will be going back to our number 2 pencil as well, but we're going to start off with going around the candle first. So basically, we're going to go right up against here, and we're going to start making it incredibly dark. So basically, like I call it, marker dark. So again, we're going to get transitions even in the black, which you're probably thinking, how is that possible? It is. I promise. So you are basically right now making it as dark as you can. You're going to trace around the left side of your candle here. We're going to go on the left side, just how we traced before with the number 2 pencil. You're going to do the same, and you're also going to do it on the right side. Don't worry about the flame for now, just the rest of it. Okay. So I wanted to give you a taste of what that's going to look like, but we're going to put that down after you're done doing that. And we're going to go back to our number 2 pencil. And now we're going to start shading. So we're going to start on the left side, the top left corner. And you're going to start very kind of sloppily shading at an angle. Quickly and kind of sloppily. So basically what we're doing is we're going on the background. We're basically making our background, kind of make it look moody, sort of. So you can see that I'm not worried about where my shading ends, right? Like you can see all the lines that I'm shading. If you need to go up and down, you can do that too. This is the beauty of this drawing. We are not worried about a perfectly shaded background, or even shading, I should say, like very even shading. So you are now going to be shading the entire background with this pencil. That is our first step. This step takes the longest. That's why I reserved it for last. But it really makes the candle pop out. And it really makes, I think, a quite lovely drawing. You're going to obviously go around to the next section. Aren't you glad this drawing isn't any bigger? Right, Terry? You'd be here forever. So obviously, if you do a drawing, bigger than this, I mean, it takes weeks to do something like this, in a bigger, um, you know, kind of a bigger setting. I was looking back at the corner of my room because I used to have a charcoal piece that I did many years ago, with an amazing artist, John Murdoch in New Hope. If anybody knows of him, he's incredible. I took from him for about 4 years, and I worked on this charcoal drawing for 3 months. And it took that long to kind of perfect it. But I have it at another school I teach right now. So it's usually in the corner here. I was going to kind of show you the transitions, and it's large. So it took 3 months. So yeah, the larger the piece, it takes a while. So that's our first layer. And your second layer is you're going to then shade in the opposite direction. And you can literally, so what I'm doing with my pencil is I'm holding it like this from the top, and I'm literally scribbling and going shading, or using the shading in an opposite direction. And this is throughout the whole thing. We want those imperfect lines in there. We want that imperfect shading in there. You're then going to come through, and now you're going to act like you're using a pencil. And what you're going to do is you're now going to make lines on top of that shading. And as you can see, like, I'm going fast. I'm going in one direction. It's funny, the group. I'm going in one direction, and then I'm going to switch directions so that it's cross-hatched. But as you can see, I'm not worried about how perfect it is. And I'm then going to go in the other direction. Now with cross hatching, the closer you go with your hatching, the more shaded it looks. But we're going to be adding our final touch to this very shortly with our 6B to make all of the other parts that we've done pop very nicely. A lot of texture in this one. Actually, there's a lot more texture in this one than the one on my left. Now, if you want, my reach, and maybe, you know, if you want one side to be a little more blended, you can go in with a tortillon and kind of blend that a bit. You don't have to. I'm just kind of showing you what that would look like. Before we add our final sketching to this, or our final, I should say, the darker and the midtones. So again, this is just something I'm doing for this one. I did it a little bit on the one on the right, just to kind of fix some of my fingerprints. And then I realized it looked kind of nice. Okay, so our final step is going to be with, well, two final steps. We also have to grab our yellow. We're going to now grab our 6B back. And we're going to now concentrate again around our candle, and now on top of our nice gray background. And we're going to start to shade lighter up in the direction of where the candle smoke would be, up here. And the way to do that is now you're going to be using your 6B like you use your number 2 pencil. You're not worried about making it really dark yet. You're just going on top of the 2B. And you are shading it darker. And you're going to do that all down the right side of your candle. And then we're going to get really dark for the final part. But for now, I'm going around in circles quickly, but pressing harder. But I'm not pressing harder where it looks black yet. That's coming. I want to get that nice dark midtone in first. And I'm doing it all around the candle on both sides so that it almost looks like a glow. So I'm going to switch sides here. And I'm going to continue around the other side. Again, this is with our 6B. We are shading a little darker than we have with our number 2 pencil, but we're not quite pressing it yet for the nice darkness that we're going to get right up against where we started, kind of near the flame earlier, where we did that little spot. We're not doing that yet. That's our final step. So now what you're doing is you're using this to get darker than you could quicker than if you were using your number 2 pencil. That's basically what we're doing. And as you can see, it's much more of a charcoal look to it. When I wasn't sure if I was going to actually include this drawing to send to the libraries. And when I looked at it at first, I thought it kind of reminds me of something from the 1800s. You know, like you've seen, right? Like you've seen those, or at least I have, you know, like old drawings. I want to say like Scrooge during like the, I feel like I've seen illustrations where, you know, he's holding the candle in the middle of the night, and it's very, you know, the drawings are black and white and they're cross-hatched, and I felt like I kind of saw a candle like this. So I don't know, maybe in the back of my mind I kind of was, I know I wasn't thinking it because I didn't think of it when I was doing it, but after I did it I thought, what does that remind me of? And that's what I thought of. So you should now see that there is a layer of some darker shading now around your candle. And now we're going to go in for the final part where we really darken up the spots that we need to darken up. So we're going to go inside our candle first. We're just going to add a little bit of darkness to some of the in-between parts of the wax. And those parts are here, basically where the darker parts are, but we're just going to add a little more, just a little spot of darkness. We're also going to go to the bottom of our candle, and we're going to add a little bit of some shaded dark right at the bottom of that candle. And we're going to extend that darkness out to the back of the candle and the side, like so. You're also going to go around sort of the lip of the candle and make that darker again. And then finally, you're going to just add some shaded darkness on the right side at the top of the candle holder, but still leaving, remember, still leaving that kind of white border. And then you can go kind of in between where the drips are and toward the edge of the drips on the candle holder and on the left side. Just kind of going over parts of it. Is everyone okay with 5 more minutes? Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael. Yay. Okay, and then finally, we're going to go on the outside of the candle, and you're going to go as dark as you can. You are scribbling like a mad person. Right up against the candle on the left side. We're going to go down the left side here. As you go into the part where it's a little bit darker but not as dark, you're going to still scribble dark, but not as dark as you do going against the candle. You're creating a transition there because it's going to help it not look like that there is a dark line around the candle, but just that the darkness of the background transitions. You know, you don't see that in real life, right? Where you look and go, oh boy, unless it's a shadow, right? A shadow kind of looks a little bit more like a line. But this, we want it to be darkening up gradually. So that's what transitions do in our drawings. It looks gradual. You know, you don't notice unless it's a solid form that there's something there. So see how that looks already with the dark. And I need to extend some of that up here, and then you're going to go in the other side. Again, against the candle on the right. Staying close to the candle with your darkness. So that means sometimes having to stay in one spot and kind of, you know, rotate your pencil around and around to fill in. So you're basically, at some parts, you're filling in that color. Other times, when you're trying to make it look a little more medium black, you don't stay to fill in the color, but you add some shading to it, like I'm doing right here. And even that is transitioning the dark to the medium dark to the lighter dark. And here at the bottom, we don't have a whole lot of dark except against the candle. Kind of starts to fade out. And then your final part is going to grab a yellow colored pencil, which I'll do right now. I like a golden yellow. You can even grab a little bit of orange if you wanted, but I didn't do that in this one. But what I did was I grabbed kind of a golden yellow, and even with the candle, you start off darker at the bottom of the flame, and then you go lighter as you go up, and then add a little bit of, you know, pressing on the middle part of the color. Woo! And then shake out, shake out your hands, your arms, shake out your shoulders, because you've been hunched for an hour. This is important when you do longer drawings. Take care of your body. You know, I've been able to do this for 30 years because I stretch. I do the, you know, I didn't do this when I was in my 20s. So when stuff started showing up in my 30s, it's like, why is that happening? That is why. But all of us, you know, whatever job we do, the computer stuff, all of it, it's all hard on us. So make sure to, you know, stretch out your tendons, and you don't have to like push and bend them back a whole lot. You just want to give them a little stretch. I'm going a little fast. So yeah, and wiggle your shoulders. So I'm so curious to see what everybody's looks like. So I'm going to remove my spotlight. Thanks, Kimmy. And if you want to unmute and go on gallery view and show what yours looks like. I forgot to stop the recording. Let me stop the recording.